Hi, the topic today is SharePoint 2010 Content Type Syndication. This feature, while not perfect, is definitely a step in the right direction. As the name implies, this feature makes it possible for content types to be published from one site collection to another, or to all site collections in the form. This represents a major improvement over the old way of doing things. But syndication is not perfect. It does have limitations. Entities like lookup columns and workflows are not syndicated with their content type. It is unclear to me why these limitations exist, but they do, and they put a damper on what otherwise would be a great feature. We hope to accomplish two things today. The first is to show how to configure a content type hub, and the second is to demonstrate how to publish a content type with troublesome entities like lookup columns and workflows. Nothing fancy is going to be done here. We are simply going to show how to manually deal with the problems. Only a list template and a managed solution will be used to install the prerequisites. The final thing we are going to do is to create a list capable of utilizing the content type and workflows as a demo to prove that everything works as it should. Let's start by looking at a diagram that depicts a 3-site collection form. A perfectly believable scenario for a small firm. We have created such a scenario for our demo today. Let us suppose we want to share a custom content type across the entire firm. If we consider the problem without the content type syndication for a moment, we would have to replicate the content types in all site collections. We do have a means of doing this today. We call it SharePoint Solution Package. There are many tricks we can use to ease the pain, but in the end, it remains pretty much a manual process of replication, which leaves us with many issues. The most prominent one is content type maintenance and update. Once you consider the pain of dealing with these issues on a day-to-day basis, there is no question that syndication offers the potential for a better solution. In order to get started, we are going to add another site collection to the farm. This site collection will be configured as a content type hub. There are only 2 steps required to do this. First, activate the content type syndication hub feature. Once this is done, we go to Central Administration and configure or create a managed metadata service. With these 2 steps completed, the next step will be to test the configuration to make sure it works. For that purpose, we are going to utilize a custom content type created previously for another demo. The selection of this content type was no accident. It just happens that this content type has a lookup column and a workflow that are so problematic to syndication. The test application shall consist of a content type called global to do. One of the columns in this content type is called status to do. It is a lookup column that uses a list as a data source. This list is called status data. This is our first dependency, which is not handled by the content type syndication. We also have a reusable workflow. Here again, not handled by the content type syndication. The only part of this workflow that is syndicated is the association to the content type. We are also going to create a list called to do one to demonstrate our content type in action. So that's our test application. Now let's move on to the configuration. Okay, we're now going to go to the content type hub. We're going to go to site collection, site settings, content type. We are going to look at a global to do. And the reason why I'm here, I want you to carefully notice the site settings. There are 5 of them. Information management policy is the last guy. Now, we're going to go back to site settings, site collection administration, site collection feature, We're going to click on it. From the top, we're going to go to the second guy, and it says Content Type Syndication Hub. We're going to come here to the button. It says Activate. We're going to activate it by clicking. It's done. Now, if we go back to what I showed you previously, bear with me a sec. I'll get there. Now, if we look at it, we see that we have a new link, which says Manage Publishing for this content type. Now, we're not going to click on it right now. This is there solely to enable a particular content type into syndication. And we'll go over that a little later in the demo. But this alone will not make syndication happen. For that, we need to configure a Manage Metadata service. To do this, let's move on to Central Administration, where we're going to create a Manage Metadata service. In Central Administration, locate Application Management and click Manage Service Applications. On the ribbon, locate New button and click it. From the drop-down, select Manage Metadata Service. Enter the name you want to give your new service. In my case, I'm going to call it Manage Metadata Service 1. Database server name should be left alone. Go to database name and enter a name for your database. In my case, it's going to be called Manage Metadata Service 1 DB. Skip authentication and failover database server and come to application pool. Okay, here I'm going to select one of my pools that I had created previously. There are a few others that come with the installation. Okay, I'm not going to use any of those. So rather than use any of these guys, I suggest that you create your own, because you can always delete it if you're not happy with the whole scenario. But in my case, since I already have it, there we go. It's selected. The final step is to enter a content type hub. This is what wires the Managed Metadata Service to your site collection. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go back to the site collection. I'm going to go to Home here, and I'm going to grab this whole thing. I'm going to copy it. Then I'm going to go back to Central Administration, and I'm going to come here and paste it. I'm going to delete all this stuff in front that I don't want. It's okay to leave the /. Leave this alone, report and all this other nonsense, leave it alone. Click OK. Now it's going to take a while. There's no feedback from the UI that something's happening. But believe me, it is working. And in a few seconds, this screen will clear, the background screen will come back, and it will show the newly created metadata service. Now, one thing to note is if you make a mistake while doing this, primarily with this here, the link, you're going to have a problem, and you're going to have to delete your Managed Metadata Service and recreate it again. So be careful. Why do I say that? Well, if you come here to our newly created Managed Metadata Service, don't click on the link, but click here somewhere on the blank area. Then go up here to the ribbon, hit Property, and we go down. Notice that this is read-only, so there is no way to make a change to it or anything like that. So once it's done, it's done. So you want to change it, delete it, and start again. All right. But that's not really what's important. We're going to come down here to Connections, and we're going to click Properties, And we're going to see, or we're going to verify that these two checkboxes are checked, right? The top ones belong to the default service. We are not the default service. We created a new one, remember? So just to show you that this is true, we're going to come down here to Manage Metadata Service, go to Properties, and you will find that the top two are checked. All right. That, in a nutshell, concludes the configuration of your service. The next step will be to actually test it. But before we go to that next step, let's set ourselves up so we can then do the demo. And what do I mean by that? So to show you what I mean by that, we're going to go to Central Administration, Monitoring, Timer Jobs, Review Job Definition. And what we're going to find here is something called Content Type Hub and a bunch of other content types, which is a block. This is the publisher, and these are the subscribers. Now, the publisher, we understand. That's pretty straightforward. What we're going to be doing during the demo is clicking on this Run Now button so that we can get things moving along quickly. But the other three are the subscribers. Now, this is predicated on the number of applications we have on the system. And since we have a default application that is normally created with the first site, which is called SharePoint 80, I additionally created two applications, one for the repository, the hub, and another one for the research site. So that means that our farm is contained within research and 80. I have disabled the repository because I don't need it to be a subscriber. And that just keeps me from coming here and try to click a button and, that is not necessary to do. Okay, so that's pretty much, we're going to leave this here so that when we get to the next phase, which is after we install the list that is needed for our lookup column and the workflow, we're going to have to test this. And when we test this, now when we actually run to syndication and verify that everything has been done, that's when the timers come into play. You will see that in a little bit. Now let's go over to our default site. As we stated earlier, there are some dependencies that need to be installed prior to publishing the content type. Our content type has a lookup column that makes use of a list as a data source. It also has a workflow. We previously created support files to help us with the installation of these dependencies. And we have to install the status data. We have a template for that, and we also have a solution for the workflow. Yes, and we have to do that in all our subscriber sites, or the publishing will fail. We have opted for a rather simple manual approach to this in order to keep it simple for a demo. But more importantly, to help you appreciate the pain associated with this process, which makes you wonder how useful syndication really is. So let us upload the status data template first. And for that, we're going to come here to Site Actions, Site Settings, and we go to List Templates. This is probably the simplest. We simply go to Documents, Upload Document, Browse, and we have to go to a place in the file system that has it, and I just happen to have it there handy. Click OK. I'm going to save it. All right, now what that has done is to put the template, so it will be available when we start creating lists. So the next step is to create the list. That is going to be the dependency we need, right? So we come to the gallery here, and we narrow down to list. And down here at the very end, we have our new template. We're going to click on it. Notice that it puts all the information there, and we're just going to put a name of status data. Okay, we create that. And there we go. This is all we need. This is a simple list for a drop down, right? The next step is to do the same thing for the workflow. And for that, we go to Site Actions, Site Settings, Solutions this time. This is going to be a managed solution. So we click on Solutions here, and we do an upload. Now, we originally selected... we used SharePoint Designer originally for this, and we created a managed solution for this, for SharePoint Designer. So let's do that. Let's now click on this. This is the guy. Open it. We're going to activate it. Now we're going to go to Manage Site Features, and we have to activate the feature. Okay, so the solution was activated, but this is the actual feature, and it is this workflow template over here. Okay, having done that, we simply double check to make sure that if we go check in Site Administration for workflows, that we find them, and there it is. This is the guy, To-Dos TM for text manipulation workflow. It is active. All right. Having done that, we're fundamentally ready for the next step. But remember, we have to do this exact same thing to all the other site collections. Otherwise, this will fail. That means that Research Department site collection has to be done, and IT has to be done. So I'm going to stop the video right now and proceed in that direction, okay? Having completed the dependencies on the other two sites, we are now ready to go to the hub. And here we're going to select the content type to publish. And we do that by Site Action, Site Settings. We go to Gallery, Site Content Types. We select the Show group over here and on the right, and we look for Global To-Dos, Content Types. This group only has one content type, Global To-Do. And now we're looking at the actual content type. We want to manage publishing for this content type, and this, simply click on it. It opens up this page which has publish already selected, and it's waiting for us to activate it. We click OK to activate this. That's it. It is now a content type hub, or at least part of the way. We now have to switch back to central administration, and all we have to do is kickstart the timers. And for that, we go to central admin. The timers are here. We're going to click on the hub, run it. Okay, that took care of the issue. Now we're going to run the whole thing. So we have the subscribers were kick-started, and so was the hub. So now let's go to our default site here and see if the content type was actually successfully syndicated. So we come here. All right, and I want to go back a minute for that, we need to go to, site actions, site settings, and then we come to site collection administration. And here we have content type publishing. You see it down here where I'm pointing. Okay. This shows the managed metadata services that we have, and of course you recall that I didn't use the default, so it's sitting there saying that there's no hub defined. And then we have this managed metadata service 1, which is the one we created, and it does have the actual URL for that particular hub, and it tells us that there's one content type registered here that came from that particular hub. So if that is true, then all we have to do is come here to site settings, content types. We're going to go to a gallery and open up content type, and we're going to hopefully see global to do, and then there it is. And we're going to open it because I want to show you that something. What's peculiar or what's unique about this is that it's write protected. The only setting we see is advanced settings. If we were to open that, now we know it makes no difference. You see that it's in a read-only state, which is what its indicated content type should be. So we do a quick check on the other sites, and I'm not even going to bother. I'm going to go directly to the gallery, site content types here. This should be the same thing. We should have a global to do, and there it is. And if we open it up, we see the same thing. We're not going to waste our time. We simply let this guy be home and go to information. And again, I want to show you that we have successfully syndicated because we installed all the prerequisites that this particular content type required prior to our, syndication being turned on. All right, so again, global to do content type, globals, and again, okay, so that already proves that this guy's already. So now we have fundamentally finished the important part of the demo. We only have to demonstrate that everything is done, have been done correctly by running our little application. And to do that, we'll go to our default site over here, and we need to create a list. So we're going to create a list, and we're going to call it to do, and it's going to be predicated on the custom list. So the name of the list is to do 1, and we're simply going to click create. Now this list will be quite useless in its current state because it's not leveraging the content type. So for that, we got to go to list settings and advanced settings and allow management of content type because we want to get to that content type. Right? We click OK. Then once we come back, we add from existing content types, and we go from the group, we find the global to do content type, and we move over the content type we want. Having done that, we know this is the one we want, global to do's. We don't need item anymore, so we're going to get rid of it. And we'll correct the view because the view right now is pointing to the all columns of the item content type. And we do a little cleaning here. We want to assign person, due date, and of course we want status to do. We're going to save that, and then we're going to come back to the list. We're going to modify the view, and we're just going to move this guy to the end. And this is the way I want my list to look. Title, due date, to-do status, and assign person. There's one more thing we want to check and make sure that it's working, and that is the workflow. Remember that we have this workflow that does some magic to the title text. So we click on the list, we go to workflow settings. We select the to-do, global to-do. So we're fine, we're ready to go. We go to to the to-do one, and we try it. So I'm just going to fill out all these columns so you can watch me do it. There's nothing significant about filling out this form. So okay, so here we are. All of it done, right? We're simply going to save it. Now what's going to happen is that we're going to add this column, but notice that there's been no text manipulation. So actually there has been. All we need to do is refresh the browser, and we get the year from here and this information here, and we put it in front with a couple of hyphens, and we're done. This is it. So what's happened here? Our simple demo has demonstrated that our syndicated content type is working as it should. This process was not without flaws. I personally consider the fact that content type syndication does not handle lookup columns and workflows as a significant problem. In order for this to be successful, we had to resort to all techniques to set up the path for syndication for the content type. The fact that we had to manually install the workflow and the status data list simply means that content type syndication does not support key entities in SharePoint. I say that's a problem. What say you? In future videos, I will demonstrate how you can simplify the process somewhat through a number of clever techniques already developed by other developers. Thank you very much for watching this video and putting up with my ramblings. I'll see you next time.